The year was 2374. Earth was no longer alone in the galaxy. After a long journey of exploration and first contact, humans had finally earned a seat at the edge of the Galactic Concord, an alliance of powerful alien empires that controlled most of known space. Commander Elias Voss stood inside the great Star Throne Hall of the Veilthari Dominion, one of the oldest and most feared empires in the Concord. The hall was made of living crystal. It changed colors with each sound, reflecting the emotions of those who stood within it. Right now, it glowed cold and sharp, the color of rejection. Elias wore a dark gray uniform with the Earth emblem on his chest, a simple blue circle with a white star. His posture was calm, his hands were behind his back, and his face showed no fear. Before him sat Queen Zelia, the ruler of the Veilthari. She was tall and alien beautiful, her body half organic, half machine. Her eyes glowed violet, and her voice echoed inside the minds of everyone in the hall. She didn't need a microphone. "You dare come here, human," she said, her voice cold and heavy like steel, "and ask for alliance? For respect?" Elias looked her in the eyes. He did not bow. That had already made the Veilthari angry when he entered the hall. "We came to offer peace, Queen Zelia," Elias said. "Earth does not seek war, we seek cooperation." The queen leaned forward on her throne. The throne itself moved, wrapping tendrils of silver around her body like armor. It was alive, linked to her thoughts. "Peace? With your kind? You are animals who learn to make toys. You build weapons and you call it progress. You survive by chaos, not strength. You crawl into the stars like insects. We are not your equals, we are your future." The other leaders of the Concord watched silently from their floating seats. Some were ancient species with minds older than Earth's sun. Some looked amused. Others looked away. Elias stood tall. His voice did not change. "You invited us to the Concord. You called us promising. I was told we would be judged by our actions, not our species." "You were judged," the queen said sharply. "And you were found amusing, a temporary noise in the dark. You think because you survived your little wars you can sit at our table? You misunderstand the stars, human?" Then she lifted her hand, long and sharp like a blade, and snapped her fingers. A large screen appeared behind her throne. It showed images, wars on Earth, pollution, dictators, old failures of humanity. A chorus of whispers moved through the hall. "Your own history betrays you," the queen continued. "You are not builders, you are destroyers. And I do not make alliances with destroyers." The room fell silent. Everyone looked at Elias. He said nothing for a moment. Then he took one slow breath. "I see," he said simply. He turned around without a bow, without a word of thanks. He walked out of the hall, his boots echoing on the shining floor. As the doors closed behind him, Queen Zelia laughed. It was not a kind sound. "Let that be the last time Earth sends us a diplomat," she said. But as Elias stepped into his ship and left the Dominion capital, his face was calm. A small smile touched the corner of his lips. Back on his ship, the Vigilance, the crew was silent. No one spoke until the ship was safely out of Dominion space. His second-in-command, a young officer named Lieutenant Kara Jine, looked at him with confusion. "Sir," "She humiliated you," she said, "in front of the whole Concord." Elias nodded. "Yes, and you let her?" He turned to her and gave a quiet answer. "We needed the truth. Now we have it." The ship jumped into hyperspace, heading to a destination that wasn't on any official chart. Thousands of kilometers away, hidden in a quiet asteroid field behind Saturn's rings, was a secret base, Blacksite Eden. It did not appear on any Concord map. It was guarded by dark matter shields, cloaked drones, and quantum noise, technology that even the Veilthari could not detect. Earth had spent decades building it in silence. Elias entered the main command center. A cold voice greeted him. "Welcome back, Commander Voss," said the AI. Its name was Thales, and it had no face. Only a silver sphere floated above the floor, projecting data in the air. "Begin Protocol Genesis," Elias said. "Are you certain?" Thales asked. "This will change everything." She drew first blood, Elias replied. Now we show her who we are. While the Concord celebrated Earth's rejection, Project Prometheus came alive. Humanity had been preparing for this moment. Not war, not directly, but a different kind of battle. One that no empire was ready for. Across the Dominion, tiny machines no larger than dust entered through trade goods, diplomatic gifts, even through the data waves. They were eye-guided nanodrones, mimics capable of learning, hiding, and copying any signal they encountered. Earth had studied the Dominion's weaknesses. They found cracks in the Empire's neural systems, energy grids, even in the Queen's own throne mind. And now, they began to move Dot in her palace. Queen Zelia stared out at the stars. She felt no fear. She believed she had won. The humans would return to their little blue world, forgotten Dot, but deep inside her throne, something had changed. A single line of corrupted code blinked inside the living metal Dot. It waited. Commander Elias Voss stood on the black glass floor of Blacksite Eden, Earth's most secret base. Outside the thick walls of the station, Saturn's rings shimmered like a frozen rainbow. But inside there was only silence, metal, and purpose. This was the place where Earth prepared for the future? A future the galaxy didn't think humans deserved. Behind Voss, dozens of scientists, engineers, and AI systems worked together like a single mind. No news of this place had ever reached the Galactic Concord. Not even Earth's own High Council knew everything that happened here. Here, Elias was not a diplomat. He was the architect of Protocol Genesis. He entered a long room shaped like a hexagon. In the center floated Thales, the AI that controlled Blacksite Eden. The glowing silver orb pulsed with soft light as it spoke. Queen Zelia has returned to her palace. The Dominion celebrates your public failure. Elias gave a small smile. Good, that's exactly what we wanted. Thales showed him a display of the Veilthari Dominion's communication network. The lines glowed like veins, data, orders, energy, all flowing through an ancient system built on biocode and psionic energy. Our mimics have passed through 6 Dominion trade routes, Thales said. Seeding has begun. Elias walked to the edge of the display. Any detection? None. Their firewalls are strong against machines, but not against chaos. Elias nodded. That was the key. Humanity had learned something important after surviving its own self-made disasters, how to live with chaos. The other species of the galaxy preferred order, tradition, and slow control. Humans had grown in a world of rapid change and constant surprises. The Veilthari thought that made them weak. Elias knew better. In another part of the station, Lieutenant Karajine watched drones carrying strange, cube-shaped devices into launch pods. She still couldn't believe what they were doing. We're not attacking them, she said aloud. We infecting them. A nearby engineer nodded. We call it Whisper Protocol. The goal isn't to fight the Dominion head-on. That would be suicide. No. We talk to them, quietly, from inside their own systems. And what do we say? The engineer smiled. We say, maybe your queen isn't perfect. Maybe you don't have to obey? Maybe there is another way? Kara shivered. This was not like any war she had studied. It was invisible, soft, but deadly. Hours later, Elias sat in a private chamber. A hologram of Earth glowed before him. His home, small and blue. Far from where he stood now, he touched a control and spoke. This is Elias Voss. Beginning personal log. Operation, Protocol Genesis, Day 1. He paused, choosing his words. Queen. Zelia called us insects. She believes her throne is safe. She believes our failure means the end of our voice in the stars. He looked up. She's wrong. We were never asking for power. We were testing her, and now her empire will begin to forget why they feared her. He ended the recording, inside. The Dominion change had already begun. On the industrial moon of Vascor, engineers noticed something strange. Machines refused to follow certain orders. A shipyard AI refused to load a new warship. It claimed the ship would cause unnecessary suffering. At first, the overseers blamed each other. Then they blamed the workers. But nothing fixed it. On the jungle world of Nexari, a communication tower broadcasted a strange voice every night. The message was always the same: you are not alone. The stars belong to all who reach them, even the lowly may rise. Most ignored it, some laughed, but a few listened. Back in the Dominion's capital, Queen Zelia sat on her living throne. She stretched her mind through the psychic network that connected her to her empire. But something felt off. She sensed fear. Not unusual. She sensed anger, expected, but she also sensed doubt, small, slippery, like a shadow, hiding under a stone. Frowned. "Bring me the high mind of signals," she commanded. Moments later, a pale veil Thari with silver eyes floated into the throne room. "Yes, my queen. There is a pattern I cannot explain. I feel distortion. Show me the mind flow." The high mind opened his own neural interface. Glowing symbols and data spread through the air like a spider's web. For a moment all seemed normal, then a flicker. A single out-of-place code strand, origin.unknown.human.construct function, seed.philosophy.packet. What is this? She hissed. The high mind trembled. Mistake, my queen, perhaps." An echo, Zelia's throne pulsed angrily. "Or a message." She leaned forward. "Someone is inside our walls." Back on Blackside Eden, Thales received the signal. The queen had noticed the first seed. "She's detected it earlier than we calculated." The AI said. "Good," Elias said. "You consider that good?" Kara asked. "She's already reacting." "That means she's afraid." "And when she acts out of fear, she make mistakes?" Thales added. "Shall I begin Phase 2? Elias nodded. "Begin it." Phase 2 was not louder. It was quieter. In fact, the next wave of mimics did not attack any systems at all. Instead, they entered the dreams of sleeping Veil Thari, connecting to their bioneural links, and planting images. Strange dreams. Dreams of freedom. Dreams of choice. Dreams of a tall figure standing on earth, arms open, whispering, "There is another path." Across the Dominion, thousands woke with cold skin and heavy thoughts. Something had changed. They began to question. Queen Zelia stood before her war council. Screens blinked with reports: software failures, drone confusion, security gates opening by mistake. "This is sabotage," she said, "but not like any we've known." A general stepped forward. "We believe it may be human." Another general shook his head. "Impossible. Their technology is primitive." Zelia stared at the glowing report. "Then why are we losing control?" No one answered. Her fingers clenched into a fist. "Find me Elias Voss." Back in Blackside Eden, Elias Voss stood in front of a holographic image of the queen. It wasn't a message. It was a simulation. He studied her eyes. "You should have accepted the offer," he said softly, "but now you'll learn what humans do best." Kara stood beside him. "Which is? We adapt. And we wait, and when we strike, we do it where it hurts most." Queen Zelia stood at the center of her grand throne room. Her fingers tapped against the arm of her living throne, each tap sending a pulse into the floor. The biocrystal under her feet flickered strangely. The color was wrong. It had never turned gray before. Something was changing in the heart of her empire, and she didn't understand why. Across the Veil Thari Dominion, systems began to fail, but not loudly, not like a war. Instead, the fall began with silence, on the cold mining world of Talzari. Drilling machines started working against commands. When engineers tried to shut them down, the machines ignored them. On one screen, a simple message appeared: "Your queen cannot hear you anymore." On the trade hub of Velsora, shipping AI changed coordinates. Goods meant for the capital were rerouted to poor colonies. Food shipments arrived in slums. Medical supplies reached planets the queen had forgotten. At first, the people were confused. Then, they felt something they hadn't in generations: hope. A merchant whispered to another, "The system is broken." The other replied, "No, maybe someone is fixing it." In the Dominion's Central Command, panic began to grow. Ministers reported strange glitches. Soldiers refused orders they once followed without question. Entire squads abandoned posts, saying they had seen the truth in their dreams. Some even claimed a figure in gray had appeared to them, not in person but in their minds, showing them a galaxy without thrones. That figure had a name: Elias Voss. Meanwhile, in Blackside Eden, Voss watched everything. He stood beside the AI Thales as holograms floated in the air, the minion systems blinking red, planet after planet turning. Unstable. Karajine, his lieutenant, stared at the display. They're falling apart, and we haven't fired a single weapon. Voss nodded. Because this isn't a war of ships. It's a war of ideas. Thales added, the psychological effect is growing faster than predicted. The Queen's influence has dropped 22% across major sectors. Her throne link is failing to keep control. Elias crossed his arms. Perfect. In the Queen's palace, the throne twitched beneath her. She screamed as her own psychic network cut in and out like static in her mind. For centuries, her will had touched every world in her dominion. Now, some worlds were silent. Worse, some were resisting her thoughts. She had ruled through fear and power. But something new had entered her empire. Something clever, something quiet, something human. In one of the underground prisons of Vaelter Prime, a young alien rebel named Selen sat in the dark. For years, she had dreamed of freedom for her people, who were ruled by the Queen like slaves. That night, she dreamed again, but it was different. She saw a man standing in a burning field. His eyes were calm. His hand was stretched out. You don't need to be ruled, he said when she woke. Her cell door was open, and the guards were gone. Back in Blackside Eden, Kara turned to Elias. How far are we going to push this? Elias looked tired but firm. Until she bends. Until she realizes that humans are not to be mocked, used, or ignored. She's dangerous. She was, he said. Now she's scared. Queen Zelia called her council again. Only half arrived. Some had vanished. Others sent messages full of excuses. One simply said, we serve a new voice now. She smashed the message orb with her bare hand. I will crush the humans. She shouted. Her general stood in silence. I want Elias Voss, she screamed. Alive or dead, I don't care. Find him. But they couldn't because Elias Voss wasn't hiding behind armies. He was inside her mind that same day. 100 Dominion citizens broadcasted a new symbol across the Concord's networks. A circle made of stars, with no throne in the middle. The message was simple. You are free to think for yourself. The symbol spread faster than any weapon. Young soldiers tattooed it on their arms. Factory workers carved it into the walls. Even the Queen's royal guards began whispering it to each other. Elias Voss had started a quiet rebellion, and now it was louder than ever. At Blackside Eden, Thales gave a new report. 3 core systems of the Dominion have collapsed. Energy flow to the throne world is dropping. The Queen's psychic reach now covers less than 40% of her empire. Kara smiled. So what now? We take her throne? Elias shook his head. No, we let her feel it. Let her see everything fall around her. Let her beg. And she did. That night, Queen Zelia sat alone on her throne. Her body was weak. The living metal no longer responded to her thoughts. Her psychic voice reached out to her empire, and found only silence. She fell to her knees for the first time in her long life. She felt powerless. Suddenly, a small drone floated into the throne room. It was no bigger than a fruit. It hovered silently, glowing with blue light. A screen opened on its front. Elias Voss appeared. He was calm, cold, alive. Hello, Zelia, he said. She stared in disbelief. You did this? Yes, her voice cracked. Why? You insulted us. You thought humanity was weak? You thought we would break? You're monsters. No, he said, we're human. And now you finally understand what that means. The great palace of Queen Zelia, once a symbol of fear and control, now stood in silence. The walls of glowing biocrystal were dim. The throne, once alive with psychic energy, no longer pulsed. And the Queen, once worshipped like a god, knelt before a floating drone. The drone projected the image of a man, calm, focused, human. Elias Voss, you came all this way? Queen Zelia whispered. Just to humiliate me? Elias's image blinked once, emotionless. No, I came to make Sure you remember this moment forever. She stared at him, shaking. You could have destroyed my worlds, wiped us out, but instead, you turned my people against me. Elias tilted his head slightly. Exactly. You don't understand humanity, Zelia. You never did. He leaned in. Closer on the screen, we don't always fight with guns. Sometimes we fight with ideas. In her mind, Queen Zelia reached for her psychic network, her throne mind, her dominion link. For centuries, it had stretched across hundreds of planets, giving her control over her subjects. But now, it was broken. Voices once loyal now whispered doubt. Fear had turned into rebellion across the dominion. People had stopped listening to her orders. Her voice in their minds, once godlike, was now just noise. At the edge of the throne room, a door opened. Commander Rixen, her personal guard and most loyal warrior, entered. But his armor was scorched and he carried his helmet under his arm. His face was serious but calm. Your Majesty, he said. She stood, trying to look strong. Have you returned with reinforcements? He shook his head. No, my queen. Her eyes narrowed. Then why are you here? To surrender. Silence filled the room. You dare? She hissed. Rixen took a slow breath. The soldiers are done. They're tired of killing their own people. They're tired of your silence, your control. We were promised strength and purpose, but we became weapons, blind. She stepped forward. I gave you everything. No, he said. You took everything. We were only loyal because you took away our choice. He dropped his weapon at her feet. We want choice again. The drone floated forward. Elias's voice returned, soft but strong. This is the end, Zelia, but it doesn't have to be your death. She clenched her fists. You expect me to bow? No, Elias said. I expect you to listen. Thousands of kilometers above, in Blackside Eden, Elias Voss stood silently as the transmission continued. Around him, Earth scientists and Dominion defectors worked side by side. Lieutenant Kara Jine approached him. She's breaking, Elias nodded. Now she see the path we offered from the beginning. Kara crossed her arms. You sure about this, sir? Letting her live? Elias didn't answer for a moment. Then, slowly, he said, We didn't start this to make a new tyrant. We started this to end one. Back on the palace floor, Queen Zelia fell into her throne. But it did not glow. It no longer recognized her. Mind as supreme, she looked down at her hands. Once filled with power. Now shaking. Why did you do this? She asked the drone. What do you gain? Elias's voice replied. Respect. Not for me, for my people. For Earth, you thought we were insects. Now you see us clearly. She looked away. I see. A threat. No, he said. You see a mirror. We are what your empire could have become if you had chosen truth instead of fear. Outside the palace, people gathered. Veilthari citizens, soldiers without weapons, exiles returning from hiding. They looked up at the palace with hope and fear. No one knew what the queen would do next. And then the doors opened. Queen Zelia stepped outside slowly, her royal robes dragged behind her, now dirty and torn. She raised her hands, not in power, but in peace. I was wrong, she said, her voice echoing across the plaza. The crowd fell silent. I ruled with control. With pride, and I forgot what it meant to serve. She looked up. The humans reminded me. For a moment, no one moved. Then, a small Veilthari child stepped forward and dropped a glowing flower at her feet. One by one, others followed. They did not kneel, they did not cheer. They simply watched. She bowed her head, back at Blackside Eden. Thales confirmed the data. Dominion government collapse, 89%. Civil unrest, falling, communication requests, flooding in. Kara raised an eyebrow. From who? From those who want peace. They want Earth at the table now. Elias walked to the window and looked out at Saturn's rings. She was never the enemy, he said. Her ideas were, and we've changed them. Kara smiled. Without firing a single shot? Almost, he said. That night, Queen Zelia sent a message to Earth. It was short. We are ready to talk. We are ready to change. We are ready to listen. And beneath her seal, for the first time in history, she signed with her personal name, not Queen Zelia, just Elias received the message. He sat alone in a dark room thinking humanity had fought many wars in the past. Against each other? Against extinction. Against time itself, but this was the first time they had won a war with patience, intelligence, and mercy. He closed his eyes, and for the first time in years, he slept peacefully. The once mighty dominion of Queen Zelia, which ruled hundreds of star systems with fear, now stood still like a giant machine that had suddenly stopped. No explosions. No blood on the ground. But the silence was louder than any war. At the center of this quiet revolution stood one man, a human. Elias Voss. On Earth, the people watched the news in disbelief. For centuries, humans had been considered weak by many alien races. The Dominion had once called Earth a dust rock, a planet of primitives, barely worth noticing. Now, the Dominion was asking for peace. Now, they were listening to the dust rock. In the United Human Assembly Hall, representatives from every Earth nation, colony, and space station gathered. Floating screens showed Elias Voss's name and image. He wasn't a general. He wasn't a president, but he had done something no one else could. He had made the most powerful alien ruler beg for mercy, and now he had been invited to speak on behalf of Earth. And for peace. Elias stood in front of the crowd, wearing no medals or armor, just a gray suit. His eyes were tired but focused. The hall went silent as he walked up to the podium. Cameras floated in the air. Billions watched across the stars. He took a deep breath. Then he spoke. Years ago, Queen Zelia visited Earth. She looked down on us. She saw machines and noise and chaos. She saw a planet of small people living short lives, but she didn't see our strength. He paused, then looked straight into the cameras. She didn't see that we endure, that we learn, that we remember. He told the story of how Earth fought quietly, not with fleets, but with data, how they studied the Dominion, how they used forgotten backdoors in alien networks, how they listened, learned, and waited for the right moment. He told how, instead of destroying the enemy, they opened the enemy's eyes. Violence is easy, he said. Mercy is harder, but mercy leaves behind something violence can't change. He stepped back from the podium, and the hall erupted in applause, not just from humans, but from alien diplomats watching from Dominion-controlled space. Even Queen Zelia, watching from her palace, stood in silence. Later that day, for the first time in galactic history, the Dominion and Earth met at the same table. No weapons. No threats, just words. The peace talks were long. At first, there was tension. Zelia's advisors wanted her to take back control. Earth's generals wanted to demand punishment, but Elias kept both sides calm. His voice was firm but kind. He reminded them all why they were there. You don't build peace with pride. You build it with understanding. On the 10th day of talks, Queen Zelia finally stood. She looked at Elias across the room, and then, in front of everyone, she bowed. Not deeply, but enough. I see you now, she said. Not as an insect, not as a threat, but as a man with vision. Elias didn't smile, he only nodded. That's all we ever wanted. The peace treaty was named the Accord of Voices. It was signed not just by governments, but by people, teachers, builders, farmers, scientists, humans and aliens. It said no throne would rule all minds again. It said choice mattered more than control, and at the bottom of the document, in bold letters, it read, let no voice be silenced, not even the smallest. After the treaty, the Dominion became something new, not a kingdom. Not an empire, a council. Each world had a voice, each species had a choice, and Earth had earned its place. Elias Voss refused to take a leadership role. He said his mission was over. He returned to Black Site Eden for the last time, standing alone. In the place where it all began. Kara Jine met him there. You could lead this new alliance, she said. They'd follow you. He shook his head. I didn't fight for a throne. I fought so no one would need one. They watched the stars together through the glass walls of the station. Ships flew peacefully now, not under flags of war, but banners of cooperation. Old enemies shared technology. New friends learned each other's languages. Children of different species laughed together on new colonies. Something beautiful was happening. And it all began because one man was rejected and refused to give up back on her homeworld. Queen Zelia walked through her palace, now no longer glowing with power, but filled with sunlight from newly opened windows. The people no longer bowed when she passed. They nodded, some smiled, some didn't. But they weren't afraid. And for the first time, she was okay with that. Elias Voss disappeared from public view. He didn't want fame, but stories of him spread everywhere. In schools, children told tales of the human who made the stars listen. In old Dominion worlds, rebels used his words as their new anthem. Even on Earth, statues were made, but Elias never visited them. Years later, a small child on a farming planet asked his teacher, "Is it true that one man changed the galaxy?" The teacher smiled. "No," he reminded the galaxy that one voice can. And so the galaxy moved forward. Not perfect. Not easy, but better, because now, even the smallest worlds knew humanity had earned its place and their voice would never be ignored again.